There we go. But yeah, we'll just have a chat and then I'll read the your blurb and then we'll kick off. But we're slowly letting people in. Hello, welcome to Ben's Book Club. Hello, Petronella. How are you? What's going on? I love your bookshelf. I love how you've got all your books really strategically positioned. That's really cool.
Well, I have been doing quite a lot of sort of online things, but also my
Yeah.
husband does use this study as well, and so he's in meetings, and they're like, "Who's this author behind you?" And he says, "It's my wife." So I'm kind of doing like
That's smart.
sales in my husband's meetings as well.
Very smart. Yeah, my wife uses this office fairly regularly. And so if you face this way, it's all creative and pretty with the piano and things. But if you
Yeah.
face the other way, it's all like office work and laptops and, I've got the camera very strategically placed.
Oh, good. Yes.
Yeah, welcome everybody
Yes.
from Bishano, from Tasmania. I have a secret stash
From Tasmania.
from Bishano. I bought it
From
from Ward's
Fisherno.
brilliant distillery. Oh, I was
Ah.
just down there. I loved it so much. I kind of wish I
Where,
could live in their distillery.
where's Ninderry? Where's Ninderry? I'll have to look up where Ninderry is.
Oh, hello from Ninderi.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're new to Ben's Book Club, we always come in and we say in the chat where we're from. It warms our little author hearts to see so many people from all across, well, the world
Quilpy. Quilpy.
on holiday from Perth. See, that's
Yeah.
dedication, Penny.
It's
We
very good.
respect that. That's dedication. Ian, what time is it for you, mate? Ian was up really late, Petronella, reading your book. I think he was up to something like 3 a.m.
He did message on
Oh, did
Facebook,
he?
and I was like, I did say thank you for zooming in from the other side of the world. Yes.
Usually Sydney, but
10:30.
today from UK. Helen, the commitment. Woo.
Two people from the UK. That's amazing.
It is amazing. I always sort of secretly wish that there was like an Antarctica-based person tuning in. Can you imagine? I feel like that would be an amazing get. Is anyone from Antarctica? Or if you're not, could someone just say that they are to make me feel really good?
Well, I still like Ninderry. I need someone, you need to tell me where Ninderry is. I need to find out where that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd actually have never heard of Ninderi either.
Oh, and I haven't heard of Quilpy
Quilpie?
either.
It's pretty
Hmm.
amazing, this country that we live in.
Just neat. I don't know where Yandina is. Uh-oh.
I feel like I'm supposed to know where Yandina is, being from Brisbane. Am I wrong? I moved up here from Victoria like 15 years ago and I still haven't acclimated.
Oh, yeah, well, except to the weather, but not to the suburbs.
I know I'm so hot all the time in winter, just near
Near
Nambour.
Nambour.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, I really like that name, Nindiri, Yandina. Great names. Tassie feels like Antarctica. I know we're just talking about the weather. It's insane. We had, I said we had but it was this false spring of deception that it got hot and then it got colder. Oh, and Quilpy's in outback Queensland. Thanks, Penny. Well,
Wow.
well done, everyone.
Hey Penny, are you traveling like with a caravan or something like that? Because we just went camping up near Nambour and we was talking about a camper trailer. I'm realizing how far off track I'm getting already. My apologies. Penny, can you just tell me if you have a caravan, if it's cool? Because I have been looking at camper trailers. Two tents,
Ah,
no trailer. Wow, that's impressive.
and Joe's in Canberra. I used to live in Canberra, Joe. I'm sure it feels very cold in Canberra too. Yes. Oh, and not
That
cold in the tents when you're up in Queensland, so you're okay
Hey Penny
there.
from Ashgrove. Yep, always good to see you, Penny. Um, I will very quickly just pop into the chat. I'll see if I can manage this. Nope, I can't. Um, Never mind. If you want, feel free to join the Ben Hobson Ben's Book Club Facebook group. If you type in Ben's Book Club onto Facebook, you will find us. You'll see my big head there with my beard. But click that. We always talk about things, and I've got a couple of questions tonight from the audience who got into the Facebook group a little early. But let's introduce Petronella, the lady of the hour, who's written this fantastic book, The
Oh.
Last Trace. Wonderful book, and I hope you've all enjoyed it. But Petronella is fascinated. I love this part of your bio, by the way. This is great. Love the first sentence. Is fascinated by what makes us tick, the lies we tell, and the secrets that we keep. She is the best-selling author of 6 Minutes, The Good Teacher, The Liars, and The Last Trace. Her books have been nominated in the Ned Kelly Awards, the Davitt Awards, and the Australian Independent Bookseller Awards, which is no small feat. That's pretty huge. Among other adventures, she has worked on a summer camp in America and traveled in Eastern Africa, which inspired parts of this novel, The Last Trace. So can we all, I don't know, clap, raise your,
Thank you, Ben.
put your
Thank
thumbs
you,
up in the
everyone.
chat. Thank you, Petronella. Thank you for writing this book. I think beyond Chris Hammer, I think one of the very first returning guests.
Oh,
Correct me if I'm wrong, everybody in the
Sarah.
chat.
Sarah's was a returning guest, wasn't she? Sarah Bailey?
No,
No?
no, I think that was our first Sarah. Yeah,
Oh,
I've interviewed her before on different formats, but never for Ben's Book Club.
oh,
So I think she was a yeah, I think that was the first one we had her for.
oh.
But we read The Liars last year and we all
Yes.
loved it. And we got a lot of good feedback on this novel in the book club on Facebook as
Oh.
well.
Well,
But I wanted to start.
can I just say thank you, everyone, for having me, and thank you for accommodating me on a different night. I know that you're normally next Tuesday, so I appreciate everyone coming tonight. That's lovely.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, but you have something on tomorrow night too, right? You have a Bathurst thing.
Yes, I'm in Bathurst tomorrow night. Yeah.
That's
So,
exciting.
yeah.
In person. If anyone's near Bathurst, I'm sure you can go and see
Pop in.
Petronella in person. It'd be nice.
Yeah.
But I had this question for you to start, and I hope it's this novel's all about this idea of memory. It's about the things we remember, the things that even some of the things that we have forgotten but still linger. But I wanted to ask this question of you just to begin with. What is or what are some of your most precious memories? Just
Oh,
as Petronella, the
wow.
human being, like
Ah,
what do you hold like, have you seen Inside Out,
I haven't
the
seen the
Pixar
last. I've
film?
seen the first one, not the second one.
First, you know how she has core memories,
Yeah.
those things that
Yeah.
make her who she is. What are those
Mm.
core memories for you, Petronella?
Um, I feel like my memory doesn't like some people have a really strong early childhood memories, and I feel I don't. But I think when I was about 7, we moved to the farm, or 5, and I do have memories of being on the farm and playing. We grew up in a drought, which kind of goes into the book. But when we did have rain, playing in the contour banks, and we got our boogie boards, and we were in the, it was muddy and disgusting, but there was water, and it was so exciting to have that kind of, I guess, that childhood sense of adventure and fun.
Yeah.
And then I think some of my more recent ones, because my mum died a few years ago, so I think some I went to England with her
Mm.
to some special family events, and I think those sort of memories are quite special too.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
And
that's
I was talking about my wedding. Oh, well, I was at an event yesterday, and someone was saying how their daughter was getting married in a castle in Spain, and I said, "Oh, I got married in our shearing shed." So obviously and it all comes back to water. I think I should rename myself the Drought Breaker, because every sort of personal celebration I have, it's normally a drought, and then my 21st just pours with rain, so we can't set up the marquee. My wedding pours with rain, and Mum says we're going to have to cancel the wedding. So we had to clear
nice.
out the shearing shed in a day and get it all ready for people to come and have an inside wedding in a shearing shed.
Wow. Maybe we should nominate you for more awards so then we get more rain, right? Is that the like when there's a big moment for you, it's going to rain?
Yeah,
That's pretty
that's
fantastic.
good.
I love that answer too, that you spend so much of your life, right? Like we don't stop making these memories. We don't stop. I don't know. I feel like as an adult, we have a bit more awareness to purposefully latch a hold of some things and like
Mm.
I'm gonna remember this. But yeah, those kid memories, they're just these formative things, hey, and you can't really trace exactly how they've informed who you are, but they do definitely. Um, you have just released this your fourth novel, and I know that you've just been to the Bad Crime Writers Festival, but I was wondering now that you are so practiced and seasoned with the release of books, what are some of your favorite things about being an author? What are some of the things you just love to do as an author nowadays?
Nowadays. Well, it is very cool talking about the book, and in fact, the best thing is talking at a book club about a book because you can talk about the spoilers. I
Hmm.
find,
Hmm.
all I always find the most interesting things in my books are in the twists, and I always want to talk about the twists, but you can't talk about that. I couldn't talk about that at the Crime Writing Festival.
No.
So I do love that. I really love that. Um, I don't know, it's just I love meeting people, and it's such a different, writing the book, you're sitting there by yourself at your laptop, and then suddenly when you put the book out in the world, you're face to face with so many people, and I really actually love both of those things.
Hmm.
And I reckon over the last 4 days, it's been a busy week. I've spoken to 300 people, like individually, not even just.
Wow.
So I had to say to someone yesterday who I know fairly well, I'm like, I'm signing this book. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to tell me your name again.
Oh no.
And I was so embarrassed. But anyway.
No, that definitely happens. We all run into that for sure.
And I think
Um,
that connection that people have with the book. So many people have written and said things about what connects them in the book, in the story. And people have brought photos of their dolls to me as well.
oh wow. I was going to mention, you write these very you have this border between, like, you right, very family oriented, very personal, very feeling based books, but then you also have these thrills and twists and turns. But I can imagine that you get a lot of very personal emails. Do you have any stories that you can share about someone's personal connection with one of your novels, that you would feel okay with sharing too, obviously? Because I know there's probably some private things, but like The Good Teacher, I felt like I really connected with that novel, just being a teacher myself, you know?
Yeah, you've sort of put me on the spot. Um, the ones I remember are when people are upset about something I've written. So
Oh, how does what do they send you personal emails and say, I can't believe you did?
yes.
Really?
Yes,
You've done
anyway.
your job well then if someone gets mad at you if something happens in the novel because they've just cared very deeply about it, right? That's sort of
Yes.
good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I always write back. I write back to everybody. And that's the thing, engaging with this story from my imagination. I just love it. I think it's wonderful that people are reading it and imagining their own versions of Lockie and Sheridan and everyone in the book. And that's fantastic.
Hmm. Just as a reminder to everybody in the chat, with Ben's Book Club, the whole point of this is that we get to be with Petronella, just in a little intimate book club, just like we're at a local library, but we're not. We're all across Australia and across the world. But if you have a question for Petronella about the book or anything, even, and I saw Gudana, who's wonderful at saying this, she loved the book. A lot of applause for the book as well. So even if you just have some positive comments for Petronella and about things that you really appreciated in the novel, feel free to pop those in the chat and we'll try to read them out. Absolutely. Um, why do you think, Petronella, that you're really enjoying writing these family stories? Because you do. You write about families or you write about found families, but you don't
Mm,
have, a lot of thriller writers or crime writers. They'll create a character that'll sort of go between novels and sort of like a detective or a journalist. You
mm.
don't have that. And I was just wondering about that. Why do you write standalone and why are you drawn to family dynamics, especially, do you think?
Well, I grew up in a big family, and I think that always helps. I'm one of five children, and I come from my grandmother's, like one was a family of 11 and one was a family of six. So there seemed to be a lot of emphasis on family when I was growing up. And I think family dynamics are fascinating, in both ways, in a good way and in a bad way as well.
Yeah.
And we can all relate to, well, in this situation, a brother and a sister, and who's taking the lion's share of caring for an elderly parent, or who's really upset and who's being betrayed and who can't trust someone. And I think, when you're looking at sort of crime writer or thriller writing, it's so much more powerful and upsetting when you're betrayed by someone, someone who's
Mm.
supposed to be on your side, someone who you trust.
Mm.
And so I think I just am fascinated by that kind of relationships and dynamics, and then also the moral dilemmas around it. Um, you're supposed to be family, but can you really trust your brother when he's let this happen? That sort of thing. Yeah, I did grow up where I mean, grow up. I read a lot of Jodi Picoult books when I was, a bit younger, and I just like that idea of and that she wasn't. I mean, she writes about some about family, but the moral dilemmas around
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that you would write just a pure family drama? And
Well, I like the page turning, like because I need to be
yeah, yeah,
immersed in something, and I
yeah.
so I need a book that grabs me. So I really want both the mystery and the family as well.
Yeah, that's fair. And I hope you keep continuing to do that because we love it too.
Yeah.
Um, we got some great questions in the chat. We'll just jump straight to them. And I actually had the same thought, Christy. At one point, I thought that old Gloria would end up being Betty as if they had swapped identities. I actually thought the same thing. I was like, oh, hang on. Because I think she tries on her name. Yeah, she does, doesn't
Yes.
she?
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
starts to call herself Gloria. I'm like, hmm. But did you ever have another ending plan for these characters, or was it always set the way it ended up? And can I just be very clear? We're into spoiler territory a little bit. So if you haven't finished the book, just as a warning to block your ears for this question in particular, but we will be diving into spoilers today. Because as Petronella said, that's kind of one of the joys of being in a book club. So go ahead. Did you ever have anything else planned for these characters? Did you one day have Betty turn into Gloria, be a secret Betty?
Well, Christy, I'm glad you thought that, and Ben, I'm glad you thought that because that was my
I did.
manipulation. I was taking you down that garden path.
You
Um,
sneaky.
and I liked the idea that was a possibility. And I think part of it is for me with the story about memory, and when that older generation, a lot of those memories are lost, and who knows what the truth is. So Gloria could well have been Betty. With her kids, they wouldn't have known who she was. Um, so I did have a different at the beginning. I wasn't when I first wrote the first draft. I thought that someone else may have killed Betty, and I thought it might be Charlie's wife. But then in the
Oh,
second
yeah.
draft, I kind of changed it. I changed it around. But I always wanted Gloria to feel a sense of responsibility that she hadn't done enough for her sister, and she had that continual sense of guilt about what had happened to her.
Yeah, and I think Kathy's sort of hitting on probably the part where Kathy's saying it was a bit sad, that whole idea of Gloria feeling so bound to her sister that she even adopted her
Mm,
giggle and her mannerisms. It's a
mm.
pretty sad, like a desperate life, I guess. One full of joy, I'm sure, but that's a pretty hard thing to like have on your shoulders your entire life.
Yeah, and I was interested in that also, not just that she wanted to, sort of in the way honor Betty's life and felt like she'd failed Betty and that she could kind of live a life for her, but also that idea of being stuck in these sibling roles and how do you get out of being the older bossy sister who she
Mm.
had been originally when the kids were all younger, and then becoming more like Betty herself.
It's pretty cool that you had that really deft hand to do one little moment where you steered us towards this idea. And there's a few people now in the chat saying we all thought the same thing. That's very sneaky,
Yeah.
Petronella. And you knew exactly what you were doing when you did that, huh?
And Kerry said she thought Charlie's wife might have killed Betty. So yes,
Yeah.
that was a possibility at one point.
Do you like you have the plan set? You don't have it set in stone as you're going through. You're sort of figuring it out as you go a little bit and finding out, unraveling the mystery as you write.
Yeah, I'm not a planner, and I keep every time I start a new book, I think surely it's easier to be a planner. And I try and be a planner, and then I make spreadsheets and do things, and then I go, that's just not how I write a book. You just have to go into the unknown. So normally know sort of the twist, but yeah, I need to write my way through it. But it just means there's a lot of editing once I've done a first draft, and I've kind of told myself the story. Then I do a lot of editing again and again and again.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry, yep. I'm right there at the moment. I'm doing that thing where you sort of go back and you have to sort of go, oh, hang on, I have to set that up better. It's like a giant puzzle sometimes, a book, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yes.
And all the pieces are the same color or something, just about.
Yeah. Joe's got a question there. Yeah.
Who does?
Joe's got a question about any specific things in history that inspired the American murders. So I was interested in the DNA. I was interested in DNA for a number of reasons. So I was interested in how, you can just do a DNA test at home and send it off for $120, and it can blow up bombs across families. I did have a friend of a friend who did a DNA test and discovered that his biological father was in fact a sperm donor, and they'd never talked about it.
Wow.
And so once the shock had gone through the family, he wanted to find out more, and his sister said, no, no, this is our family. So I was interested in, how siblings respond
Mm.
in these situations differently,
Mm.
but also how that sperm donor from the 1980s, he was told that he'd be, anonymous forever. And now science changes
Mm.
so fast that now, he's no longer anonymous. Um, and and how with forensics investigations, how DNA has also changed so much, and the Golden State Killer in America, and how that was one of the first really big cases that was cracked by DNA, by them doing a DNA sampling against a mass database and finding someone who was a distant nephew, I think, of the killer,
Oh
and
yeah,
doing
right.
this forensic genealogy to match it up and find someone who was likely to live in that area at the time, one of the family members. And then they got his, and you can do this in America, got his um, DNA from his trash, from a Coke can or whatever, and matched it up. And
Incredible.
yeah, and so I was just thinking, as I said in the book, how that nephew probably wasn't even born when these murders happened, and he was, his DNA was the one to solve the crime. They have changed the laws since then in America about doing this sort of mass DNA database checking by law enforcement. So they have to get a warrant and do it quite differently. But
Yeah, right.
and Australia, they don't. So Australia doesn't do that in the same way, but they were hoping to bring it in. But they have had some towns. I think there was a town in Queensland where there was a rape and murder of a young woman, and they asked the whole town to give their DNA, and everyone, was horrified and horrified about the murder, obviously, but obliging, came and gave their DNA, and one woman gave her DNA, and it turned out to be her son was the criminal.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah,
Oh, can you imagine?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, some of these stories, hey. Yeah, pretty incredible stuff. The stuff with the DNA, I found really riveting myself, and the way that Lockie just sent it off to an
Yes.
anonymous email, I was like, no.
He was in a very depressed state. He was not
He
coping with the
was.
world.
Wasn't thinking clearly, he was just sort of panicking a bit, eh?
Yeah.
But
Well, it took
man,
me, I kept thinking, oh, I should do a DNA test for research. And then I'm like, oh, but what will happen to my DNA in 30 years? I don't know. Oh, no. I
yeah.
finally did one, which was good because
I
I
did
thought
do.
you just did a scraping, but you actually spit into a tube. Um, and then, so it took me 6 months to decide, and I finally did the DNA test, sent it off, and then nothing happened for months and months and months. And I checked the website, and you had to send it to Ireland. So this was ancestry.com.
Oh yeah.
And um, and And I thought, and it said, oh, they often get lost in the mail, so just do another one. And I was like, oh no, the universe is telling me, don't, just don't do it. And
Yeah, gee.
I'm one of five children, and three of them look exactly like mum, and one of
Yeah.
them looks exactly like dad, and I don't look like anybody.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So I thought, oh, it's probably for the best that we haven't had the DNA test come back. And then it just turned up after, I don't know, 6 months. And really, the only surprise was then my one of my sisters said, because I sent it around to the family and said, "Oh, here's our DNA." And one of my sisters said, "Oh yeah, I had mine done years ago. Yeah, yeah, it all matches up. That's fine."
Whoa. There
So I
you
haven't
go.
had
Hey?
any surprises yet. People contacted me yet.
I like that you said yet because you don't know, do you? Um,
Yes.
Speaking of research too, I actually had the thought, and Lynn has just talked about the camp in Pennsylvania in '83 that she went on. I had the thought that perhaps that you'd gotten some sweet research trip and you've gone over to America to do all this. But no, that's part of, you've done that previously. You worked at an American summer camp, is that correct? And
Yeah, yeah.
how
I
did
and
that
I
enter the book?
I did want to go back to Pennsylvania, but I kind of ran out of time, which was annoying. And in the end, I probably would have had time, but yeah. So I was there. Oh, that's funny, Lynn, that you were there in '83. I was there around '95, I think, and I worked on a girl guide camp called Camp Laughing Waters. And it was a really interesting experience. And I mean, I've been to America briefly before, but I was living there for 3 months on the camp on site. It just sort of, it struck me how America's such a big country that they don't they don't look outside their country. And the kids that I met, they had no knowledge of Australia. They kept saying, but how long did it take you to drive? I'm like, you can't drive from Australia. There's an ocean. What if you drove onto a ship? Then how long would it take to drive? I'm like, it's just
Wow.
not
Okay.
possible. And then they'd say, what language do you speak? And I said, I speak English like you do. Oh, we don't speak English. No, no, no. We speak American. We don't speak English. And yeah, it was
Wow.
a really fascinating kind of look at and even then there was this discussion about immigrants and this one of the other camp counselors was saying it's okay you're here because you're only here for 3 months but you should no one else should come and take our jobs and this whole real and she was
Wow.
18 she was just a young person and she was already saying all those ideas that we see now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Julie's just talked about the similar thing where they thought she was going to Austria, confusing Australia with Austria. That
Yeah.
can happen.
Yeah.
I'd love to jump into, actually, I've got one more question for you, and I was hoping this would be okay, but can you take us through the typical day of Petronella, just going through your day as an author? Like, when do you write? How long do you write? Do you write early in the morning? How do you do your thing?
How do I do my thing? It really depends on what stage I'm at. So at the moment, I've been trying to write a bit, but I've been on book tour, so I haven't been doing much writing.
Mhm.
If I'm in the middle of a story, I do love getting up early and doing some work like at 6 o'clock before everyone else is awake. And I find that if I go to bed thinking about the story, my subconscious does amazing things, and I wake
Yeah.
up with ideas ready to go. As long as I don't, look at Facebook or listen to the news or anything else, I feel that's the time that the best, it sort of flows more freely and
Hmm.
and the critic in your head is also a bit more quiet, hasn't
Yeah.
woken up yet.
Yep.
So I do a bit of work, then I take the dog for a walk, get my daughter ready, so, and then I try and do my creative writing work in the morning because my brain's best then, and then I still do some sort of freelance other writing work, and I do a bit of creative writing tutoring in the afternoon. So I
Mhm.
try and separate it in that way.
Yeah. And how do you aim for like a word count or anything in the day, or do you just go until you
Yeah,
can't?
if I'm writing the moment, I need to get back in. I'll be back in next week. Yes, I do aim for a word count. I'm always sort of pushing myself for a word count.
But what's can I like can you tell us the number or is it a bit
Well, it'll be random because I will have set a timeline for myself
I
once.
see, I
So
see.
yeah. So once
Right,
I've got a
okay.
timeline.
I always try about 1,000 words a day, and then if I can hit that, I'm like, okay, I'm good, and I can go and do
Yeah,
other stuff,
that
you know.
sounds good. Yeah. And I think
Um,
I'm just learning, like for those who write out there, I often would just sit in front of the computer and think, oh, I can't, later in the afternoon, oh, what am I going to do next? I don't know. Oh, I'll just go on Facebook or I'll just, and now I'm trying to think, walk away from the laptop, go and go for a walk or have a shower or do something else because I think then, because the brain keeps working and I think it works better to come
I
up with the
agree.
ideas when you're not sitting at the laptop.
I agree. It's a strange thing, isn't it? I mean, Christy's got a great question here about did you do any courses or study writing before you actually wrote your first novel? But it's a weird thing, this thing we do, isn't it? It's kind of it's hard to quantify. But yeah, did you do that stuff? I think you said you did a master's. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I did communications as my first degree and I did creative writing as part of that. But somehow I knew that you couldn't make a living as a novelist back then. So
Yep.
I thought I was sort of writing on the side. And then yeah, I often did courses. I found courses really helpful for deadlines because if you're working, you've got kids, there's no imperative to get no one's waiting for a novel, it's just your secret thing. And it just gets
Mhm.
pushed to the back of all the other things. So I
Well,
found
yep.
that, yeah, doing a course was good for me, good for deadlines. And when my kids were a bit older, I'd say, oh, mum's got homework too. I have to do my homework. You go, you do your homework, I'll do my homework. And also, of course, then, the knowledge you get from courses and writing groups as well. I find that I've got a number of writing people that I would swap
Yeah,
chapters with
right.
and have early discussions with. Yeah.
So yeah, you sort of cobble together everything, but then you sort of have to end up doing whatever works for you, right?
Yeah.
You sort of have to take things from every different person and then put it all into what makes you do your thing.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
real magic thing. I was writing a scene today where the only thing I had was it has to be a kind of romantic scene. That's all
Oh,
I had.
yeah.
No, not 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 ooh romantic, but just like sweet, just early stages courtship sort of thing. And I just didn't know what to do. And I had these characters, and I'm like, what do I do? And I just kept on trying to put them in different spots, and nothing worked. And I sort of was getting angry at myself. And eventually, I was like, just write how you feel and just go and see what happens. And it was when I stopped trying to come up with an idea that the idea arrived.
Yeah.
Do you find that you write that way a little bit too? Like, are you a very intuitive kind of writer? You just like to see where you feel?
Yeah, I do. I do. And I feel like if I try and think up a character, do a character outline or something, it's so flat. It doesn't mean anything to me. And really, I need to
Mm,
write my way into the character, put some dialogue in, listen to their thoughts, like get them acting in the scene, and then I can sort of understand who they are. And I think even in A Good Teacher, I was just saying to someone yesterday, I suddenly had this librarian, and she's only minorly in the final version, but she was a much bigger character at first. And she was a Scottish librarian. Um, she was in a gay relationship and they were doing IVF to have a baby. And I had all this Scottish language and
well,
I don't know where she came from. I kept thinking, and I wrote so much of her. And afterwards, I'm like, where did she come from? Was I watching a Scottish TV show? Like, what? And I just don't know where, like, so I find that fascinating. Like, what does your brain latch onto that it brings
uh,
something up?
it's really strange. Hey, like I had this scene unfolded, and one of the characters was saying, "Oh, we should just run away together. We can change our names." And then what should we change it to? And one says Balzac. And I was like, where did that come from? And then the other one started to make fun of it, saying it sounded like Ballsack. I was like, what is this? And I had like I had to go onto Google and find out where is Balzac from. Like I know, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah, yeah,
subconscious is better at this than our conscious mind, I think sometimes. Hey,
yeah. Well, I do. I
um,
think with the character of Lockie, I did give him a lot of my like climate grief in terms of I was, from
yeah,
the bushfires, the pandemic, and the floods. I feel like I put all that into Lockie, and so I think every character has a little bit of me in them.
yeah.
And that was good in terms of a personal journey because then I did all this research about new climate technologies, and then I actually felt a lot more hopeful at the end of
Oh,
once
that's
I'd
good.
written him. So that was good. Yeah.
That's nice. I'd like to talk in a second about how Kai is a part of you because that's very interesting to me. But Gordana has a very quick question. I think you ask this one every week, I think, Gordana, but how long did it take you to write the book?
I think it probably took about a year to write the book, but then I did a year's editing. So I think, well, no, it probably took me 4 months to write the book, but that was like a first draft, and then I did a lot of editing. So
Yeah.
2 years in total, I'd say, in the whole process.
Was that from original idea conception though? Because that sort of thing can come years prior and you sort of,
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about the idea. The idea changed a lot. It really, yeah, I did change my concept quite a lot as I
yeah.
wrote. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us how? Like how did it change
Well, I
the
think originally,
idea?
like, I really like these idea of siblings. So I was interested in the siblings with different views, and I was originally having one like moving to the snowy mountains and being more of a prepper and kind of cutting himself off from the world, which Lockie does in one way, but then I put the prepping into Ronnie, the
Ronnie, I was going to
neighbor.
say Ronnie's
Yeah,
a prepper. Yeah.
yeah, I moved that kind of across to Ronnie. And then I was going to have them have a cult, something to do with a cult, but that ended up in 1968 with back in Pennsylvania with a kind of, well, they're not a cult, but a fundamental, Christian group. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's funny how, yeah, you still had the same ideas, but they just sort of slotted into a different puzzle sort of
Yeah.
placement, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I
I'd
like, there's a
love,
question from Penny
yeah,
that said,
go ahead.
did I think about including the outcome with Lockie's boss and if he was found guilty at all?
Mm,
Um, yeah, he's a piece of work, isn't he? And I did quite a lot of research on those types of people in aid work, and there are, mostly men who are really taking advantage of vulnerable people in aid work.
yeah.
And not that many. Sorry, most aid workers, amazing. Sorry, that's most aid
I know.
workers. But
It's
there
just
are,
it's
the
such a
occasion.
noble profession, it's such a good thing. And then, oh no, like people will take advantage. It sucks.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean that's there is a lot of professions like that. Um, but yeah, I did. To me, Penny, I always felt he was found guilty in my head. He was getting charged and he was going down. So I felt that, and I was hoping that people would feel that's the way it would go for him. I didn't really want to go into the detail because I thought then Lockie's got to go back to America and give evidence, and it was sort of was a longer
At the end of the
story.
book, you couldn't
Yeah,
do a Peter Jackson at the end of Return
yeah.
of the King. You had
Yeah.
to actually finish the book. Can we talk about Kai? I'd love to hear about how Petronella is very similar to Kai because I had a very visceral reaction to Kai. I think that sequence where he the Sheridan's daughter, is it Mabel? It's Mabel, right? Or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. Takes his ecstasy
Mm,
and then he realizes what she's done, and then she's in the hospital potentially going to die, and he still says nothing. And you made it very, very believable. Like I get it, he tried, but he's panicked and he's guilty and he's shamed. I get it.
yeah.
But man, oh, but you
Yeah.
still made me care about him. Like when he came back at the end and he had these good moments, like I still was on his side. But man, Pet, can you talk about that? Because I don't think you've ever,
Yeah.
like Charlie, you know, murders people, and I didn't hate him as much as I hated Kai. Probably because I loved him too. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
that thing. So talk about Kai and that whole moment, please, if you could.
Well, I think for Kai, I think Kai is just so, such a teenager going through these huge emotions, doing, having these experiences for the first time, and so desperate for desperate to be part of the crowd, to fit in, to have his friends. He's been sent away to,
Mm.
this bogan country place miles away from the surf. Um, and he can't find his way in. He can't,
Yeah.
he's scared of losing his old friends. He's scared of, losing everybody. Um, and I think he's terrified of being the bad son because he idolizes his dad. And
Mm.
so I felt like and I have well, my daughter's older now, but well, I've got two children who are older now. But the whole thing at school, the thing is call the ambulance as soon as and admit to it, and it's much better to
Yeah.
obviously say we've been taking drugs or say what it is, so we can deal with it. And I think that seems to be getting through, hopefully. But I just felt that he was so concerned about, so unsure of himself, like he
Yeah.
couldn't he couldn't he couldn't see the consequences. Well, he could only see one set of consequences, which were the selfish consequences about what would happen to him, and not about, what's going to happen to me, or what's going to happen, what could help the situation here.
It's really tricky though, because I think that I do my best, and I don't think I ever really do. I never really judge people because I don't feel like I think, there but for the grace of God go I. I'm not a
mm,
perfect person. I don't know what I would do in that situation, but I could very well panic. I could muck it up. Like we all
yeah.
make mistakes, we all muck it up. Um, but then you do have some characters like Charlie and yeah, even Gloria at points as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was Kerry who said it over here. I love the way you wrote about good people doing bad things and bad people
Mm.
being seemingly likable, but you don't ever seem to have a character who's just wholly Superman, you
Well, it's
know.
funny because I watched. I'm sure a lot of you watched Bad Sisters, the Irish TV show where they've got the brother-in-law dies and he's called the prick, and the whole show is about they agree to kill him off, but each episode you think who killed it, how did he die? You never know. There's all these things that happen, and he is truly like he has no redeeming features. And I
Mm.
was watching that show and I was like, this is such a fun, it's so fun to have that kind of absolute villain. And I loved that show. And I was thinking about the absolute villain, but then I thought it's not for the types of books I write, it's not believable. It's not, I'm writing books that, could happen to ordinary people. And I just feel most even the bad people, even the very bad people, uh, have some have some semblance of kindness in them. And even so, another case I was researching, which is where someone said to me about Charlie keeping the mementos in the basement. They said, do serial killers really do that? And I was like, yes, because I read this case, and he was a treasurer for the church community,
Mhm.
and he was married with three children, and he had murdered maybe five women, and he had kept these mementos in the basement. And but his family and his community had no idea because he was this caring, loving man who gave his time to other people, who looked after his family. And so I think there are actually, of course there are some people who have irredeemably evil, but I think there's more people who have both. Which is
Yeah.
scary, which is much more scary because I think once you see, when you see an evil person, we just
Mm.
avoid. But when there's someone who can flip it either way, you don't know. That's it. That's much scarier. Yeah.
I thought, talking about um this man being a man of the church, I thought that's something else that you did handle very deftly was the shades in which you painted the Christian church, because you did have that the fundamentalist father figure. I think his name was Abraham.
Mm,
He was pretty, I mean, he was next to Charlie just about in the book. Like he was
mm,
pretty full on horrible person. But then you did have his religion passing down to his grandchildren. And then you had some wonderful scenes where there was this
mm.
youth group and they were doing these things that were really positive in the community as well. And you're not, that's what I like about your novels. You don't seem to paint in the black and white. You always sort of have, was that deliberate, the choice to paint
Yeah.
both sides of that?
Yeah, I did want a positive kind of balance to that church community in 1968. But having said that, like that sort of Abraham's behavior was, I mean, unacceptable, but still not unusual in those times. You know what
No,
I mean?
yeah.
Like it
Mhm,
that rigidness of thinking, that
mhm.
absolute belief that you're doing the right thing, and that's I was interested in looking at that when you so believe you're doing the right thing, but at the same time, but it's your own daughter, and it's you're destroying her life, but your belief about the right way is so strong that you can't see that you're destroying your own child. Right?
That's difficult, isn't it? Because it does feel like, whereas a person like Charlie, it does feel like he had some degree of knowledge that what he was doing was pretty horrible.
Mm,
But then you
yeah.
say Abraham was fully convinced that he was
Mm,
doing
the
God's
right
work. He was
thing.
doing the
Yeah.
right thing. He was helping his daughter see the error of her ways.
Mm,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that you do that. It makes your books really, really meaty and good. And I think good for book club discussion. Um, you know. Um, there was another, I have to read this one. I really love this. So, a person from the Ben's Book Club Facebook group, Julie Randolph Davies or Davies, I'm probably Davis. Sorry, it's definitely Davis. Anyway, sorry. But she said this, and I really loved how she put this. I'd love to get your comments on it. I really like how Petronella used oh, she's got it down there. Davis?
Davis. Davis. I think
Day.
she's a Davis.
Julie, I'm so sorry. I wish I could give you the microphone for just this little bit. I was giving you a shout out, but I mucked it up. I'm sorry. She said, I really like how Petronella used a person's memory as the antagonist. I was like,
Mm.
wow, I hadn't thought of it that way because I'm in my mode, I'm thinking about Charlie's the antagonist, or I'm thinking about the situation. But the idea of a person's memory being the thing that's holding them back, I was like,
Yeah.
blew my mind. Is that how you thought of that? Is that
Well,
a
I didn't think of it in those terms. Like I thought of that in the general sense, but I love how Julie's worded it. Yes, that's amazing.
yeah.
Because I like the idea that you trust yourself through your memories. But if you don't remember what you've done, how can you trust yourself?
Mm.
And I did a lot of research on these alcoholic blackouts, which were fascinating in a terrible way. And so if you're drinking really fast, in 3 minutes you flood the section that makes memories, and so you can't remember anything for longer than 3 minutes. So your short term memory is not there.
Wow.
Um, and 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 some people do behave the opposite way to normal. So introverts or extroverts, passive people become very aggressive. So
That's
they
scary.
do, yeah, and then they're looking through, and depending on their level of shame, if they ask people about how did I behave, um, otherwise they're trying to figure out what did they do. I didn't, I didn't, I'll say to this group, I don't say this in every talk because about the doctor ones in the book, but this other woman, um, came out of her memory, her alcoholic blackout, and she was in bed having sex with a man who she had no idea who he was.
Whoa.
And it's like that clearly she had been hanging out with him for the last 2 hours, but she had
Whoa.
no memory. And then she didn't know where she was in Paris. She didn't know where the hotel was. She didn't know how she got there. So she went downstairs trying to figure out where am I? Yeah, so that level of
That's so scary.
I know, and all along you're behaving like you know what you're doing. Like you're not,
Mm.
you're not necessarily looking like you're really, really drunk. You can be looking like you're almost sober.
I was
Yeah.
thinking about it too, though. Like, I have a friend named Paul, and we've spent most of our lives together, but he will remember things I've said. He will remember
Mm.
things that I've done. And I'm like, I've got no memory of doing that. Did I really do that? Like, what did I say? Did I really say that? I'm not drunk at all, but we
Yeah.
don't, I don't
Yeah.
know. Memory is so fallible and
Yeah.
it's almost unreliable. And
Mm.
I was just, even someone like Kai, like he's sort of held captive by his memory of his Sydney and what happened
Mm.
in Sydney.
Mm.
That then drives him to do different things.
Yeah.
Gloria is held captive by her memory as well. I mean, almost literally held captive by
Mm.
this idea of her sister. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just think, yeah, wait, a lot of people are applauding Julie. Way to go, Julie.
And I like the other thing I like about memory is how differently, siblings or everyone in the family remember something, even as
Oh
simple as,
man.
Christmas Day. Oh no, whatever it is, I washed up, or I did the most work, or I did this, or whatever your
Yeah.
interpretation is of the day or any family event, everybody remembers it so differently, even though you're all there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. And even someone will go, "Oh yeah, Christmas that year, man, that was just horrible." Like, do you remember the way Mum spoke at the table?
Mm,
And someone else will be like, "What are you talking about? It was awesome. We played with
yeah.
the water pistols." It's like
Yeah.
what your memory holds on to and takes as core is so interesting. Hey,
Yes.
um, we're nearly out of time, if you can believe that. Ian, thank you for saying that. That's really interesting too. Ian is just saying his memory issues, so he related with Lockie's blackouts. Yeah, thanks, Kerry. We have to introduce a special guest.
Oh, I'd forgotten.
Oh, I haven't. Petronella has brought a special guest, everybody. Petronella, would you mind introducing your guest, please?
I would like to introduce you. I've never written a book that has a real character in it, but this one did have a real character in it. So,
Ah,
everyone, here is Betty. She's 82 years old, so she's a bit older in real life.
she's so
Uh,
pretty.
she was my mum's doll, and yeah, so I think she's from 1942 in
Oh my
England.
gosh.
I know she's terrifying, isn't she? Poor Betty.
Does she
Um,
does she do that thing with the eyes? I remember my grandma had one where it would be shut and then you'd lift it up and it'd be bloop and the eyes
no, she's not
doesn't
that
do
sort.
that.
No, no. But she's quite tall, like she's the size of a 3-year-old.
She is tall.
Um, so for book launch, I went to Vinnie's to buy her a new dress.
Hmm.
And I took her in, and the Vinnie's lady said, "You're not donating that thing, are you?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. I just need to buy her a dress." And they said, "Oh my God, the children's section's over there," and they were like, "Ugh." And then after a while, they came over, and then they started helping me, and they got dresses out for her, and
Oh,
they were trying on. So she's got a lovely blue dress.
I love her
Um,
pearls too. She looks
yeah,
really
it's got some pearls. She probably needs shoes, but apart from that, she's got these weird little hands. So she's kind of knitted and paper mache, I think. But
it
yeah.
looks like a cat ate her face.
Well, I was at
Sorry.
my sister. I did a book club at my sister's, and we turned around, and the doll was moving, and the dog had. I mean, the dog had got onto her.
Did you freak out for a
I
second that Betty
did,
had come to
yeah.
life? Yeah.
And we had the book launch at a pub in Manly, and my children had taken everything back to the car, and it was late at night in a scary car park, and they're like, "Hurry up, Mum!" And I came back and opened the driver's door, and they'd strapped her in the driving seat, ready to drive, and I just freaked out. Yes, I think Annette exactly what she looked like. She's not ripped apart, but
She's close.
she hasn't been to the doll hospital. I don't know what they'd do with her. Yeah, but talking of memories, see, my mum's died, and I can't ask her how, when did you get the doll and why did you keep her? My mum's not a girly girl who would keep dolls. It
Yeah.
seems, yeah, unusual. So I'd asked my uncle, but he didn't really. He just went, "Oh, I think she was from 1942." But
So there's
Yeah,
some story there that you just don't have access to. That's really interesting.
yeah, yeah. So she's
Yeah.
very happy to be featured. She's doing well on book tour for an 82-year-old. She's been to nightclubs and all sorts of places.
Whoa. She danced on the dance floor. Yeah,
Yes, she's
I
having
agree,
fun.
Russell. Like, can you imagine sitting in a dark room and just sitting on a, I mean, the beautiful Betty sitting on a chair. Sorry, I keep on being rude to her. Sorry.
Oh, poor Betty. So
Living her
she's
best.
the only character I've ever really made from a real person.
Um, I've got one more question, two more questions for you because we're nearly out of time. I don't know whether this is a good or bad question. I don't know. I was just curious. Can you tell me about the cover? Because I love the cover. I think it's really striking. But then I was thinking about it. Who is the girl? Like, this isn't Sheridan. I'm assuming this is Betty. Is that who it
Well,
is?
I felt like, and you know what it's like that they come up with a cover and then,
Full on.
yeah. So I felt like it could actually be any. I felt it could be any of them. I felt it could be Tiffany from
It could
summer
almost
camp.
almost be Mabel as well. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
maybe a
could
bit
be
older for
Mabel.
Mabel, but
It
it
could
could be,
be
yeah.
Betty. Um, yeah, and it could even be Sheridan running to the hospital. It could
Yeah.
in fact be any of the four characters in a timeline.
It's a tricky thing, hey, the cover. It's sort of
Yeah,
you gotta
yeah,
make it evocative, make someone purchase it. But then I was just like, oh, I wonder who it was. But I guess that's true. It's sort of an amalgamation of all of them all together.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I did say, why is it a red coat? I mean, I think I had a red coat. I must have had a red coat, but I did say, why is it a red coat? There are so many red coats. And then they said, oh, but red coats sell. And I went, oh, fine. Have a red coat then.
Yeah, they know that business a lot better than
Yeah,
we do, that's for sure.
they do. They do.
Um, yeah, so Mandy had the same question. So that's all we got time for. But Petronella, can you tell us what's next for you? I got two parts of that. One, are we getting a TV show soon? Are we getting some sort of screen adaptation? And two, are we going to have you back next year? When or what are we getting next?
Well, I hope so. I think a screen adaptation would be amazing.
I do too.
We just need to pull some strings somewhere somehow. Yeah, we'll get on to that.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I feel it's a very visual, a very dramatic book. Um, I am working on the next one now. I have rewritten the first five chapters 10 times, so that's like almost a whole book, isn't
Yep, that's fair. Yep,
it?
that sounds good.
So I think not next year, but the year after that will be. So I would
All right.
love to be back with you the year after. That would
Yeah,
be lovely.
you'll be the first. Well, actually, Chris Hammer's booked for end of this year, so he's going to be the first three-peat, but you'll be the second for sure. Um,
Sounds
we love
lovely.
having you, Petronella. It's amazing to talk to you. You're very thoughtful, but very warm too. So very
Oh,
grateful that
well,
you've
it's
spent
such a
your time with
pleasure.
us. Thank you for making the time. So I know you're very busy.
Thank
Um,
you.
and yeah, thank you everyone from chat as well. Spread the word. Go and what do I think? All right, go to your office, workplace, and put this on the table and just get someone else to read it and then get into a debate about it. And
Yeah,
then
that's a
everyone
great
will
idea.
buy it and you can start your office book club with this one.
Yeah,
It'll go well. 'Cause there's a lot in there about DNA and memory and all those sorts of things. It's a great thing.
yeah,
Um,
and lovely questions, everybody. Thank you so much for, yeah, really engaging with it and the characters and
yeah.
all the things that are happening in it. Yeah.
People really love your books, which
Oh.
is awesome. That's all we want, hey, as an author. Um, So I thought I'd introduce next month's book. We are going to be reading a new author to our book club. Not a new author to me, but a new author to our book club. I've got to look at my cool ARC copy.
Oh,
Ta-da!
oh, I can't wait to read it. Oh, I'll have to come back and listen.
It's a cool,
Oh,
yeah, they'd love to have you. Special
yeah,
guest Petronella in the chat. Um, it's a cool cover too, right? But
yeah,
I love Christian. I
he's
don't know
so
whether you
good.
can see, I've got Mario on my arm here. But
Yeah.
last time I saw Christian, we just talked about Mario for an hour. So stay tuned, everybody. We're gonna go through Mario from the NES to the 64. You guys all no, I'm only kidding. Um, but yeah, you can see where I'm up to in the book. I'm enjoying it very much. Christian, yeah, and he wrote a movie. He wrote a movie, The Relic, I
Oh,
think, if
that's
you're
right, the relic,
interested.
yeah.
Yeah, he
And he
works
also did the TV series Clickbait.
Clickbait, that's it too. They're
Yeah,
on Netflix. He works
yeah,
for
yes,
Netflix
yes,
in addition to being an author as well.
yeah.
Pretty remarkable dude. So
He's
yeah, come back
fantastic.
for next month. What date is it? That's such a good question, Jan. I'm sure Malcolm in the chat would love to talk to you about the date. It should we should be the fourth Tuesday of October. So it'll be the 22nd. Go to the Ben's Book Club Facebook group, but I will be posting links and things like that. I might even try to get one up tonight if I can manage. But yeah, Petronella, thanks again.
Oh, such a pleasure. Thank you, Ben, and thank you for your thoughtful question too.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for writing such a good book. And yeah, we'll have you back soon, and hopefully I'll get to see you in the flesh one of these days. Hey,
Oh, I'm coming to Brisbane. I'm coming to Brisbane.
when?
There's a Sisters in Crime literary dinner on the, I'm going to say 17th of October. I don't know when it is.
I've got an invite to that actually, but
Oh,
I felt weird because it's Sisters in Crime, so I just felt a bit
that's
uneasy
right. You're
about
allowed to come. You're
it. Am
allowed to
I?
come. Yep. Love to see you there.
Because that's Poppy G.
Yes. Yeah.
She runs the Ben's Book Club live event that we do. Sort of like a um yeah, I should go. I
Yeah.
should go and then I
Come
can
on,
take
and we'll meet in the flesh properly.
that
Yeah.
sounds perfecto. All right, I'll put that in my calendar. All right, sorry, we
Okay.
should have taken that off the air.
Sorry, everybody.
All right, thank you everybody. Have a
Yeah.
great night and thanks again, Petronella. All the best with your book.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.